Hey everybody, Bob Chick back with another installment of the Voice of Bodybuilding. I'm back and badder than ever, and who better to be sharing this microphone with me but Sugar Shawn Ray. What's up, Sugar?
All right, man. Recovering from a whirlwind 40-year high school reunion and a 2-day Fit Expo in Anaheim with all the old school and new school guys.
Yeah,
Unbelievable.
you've been all over the place. We're going to get that in just a second, Shawn. But once again, we have to thank our peoples for bringing this episode to you. Panada Mutant, Celsius Icon, Egg Whites International, and of course, our good friends at Pro Fit. And I got another new one coming very soon. I have finally found an HRT company worthy of putting a deal together with, bro. So I'm going to have information breaking on that next week. It took me a couple. I got to be honest, not easy to find good companies or good people these days, bro.
Well, I mean, we're moving into that age where the wellness and the HRT companies have a legitimate role in our industry to help give these guys legitimate products that will help them on their fitness journeys and give the masters competitors a little bit more longevity on that stage and keep their testosterone levels up. And it
Yeah.
really does take the athlete into a more awareness phase of where they're at. I know when we were coming up, most of the bodybuilders knew nothing about blood work, knew nothing about cholesterol levels and
No.
and all that good stuff. And these companies, they're providing a good service and it's monitored. So there's benefits there.
Well, listen, never any more important than today, where we get, unfortunately, it's like an obituary column. We just got word this week, Eugene Mishin just passed away.
Yeah, the Russian. I met him right literally when he fresh off the boat, so to speak, over
Yeah.
in New York. He was a very well-known fixture in New York and did some acting along the way. I remember when he was dating another competitor named Lena way back in the days in New York, and
Yeah. Yeah.
a gentle giant. Guy was a great dude, and it's never the right time to go. He barely was 48, 49. Didn't even reach the age of 50, and here we are celebrating 40 years for the class of 1984 in high school, and getting to see these full-grown adults and grandparents and 30 years in their careers and fully developed contributing individuals. And for Eugene to be taken from us that soon, it's never the right time. It's tragic.
Well, our hearts go out to his family. He was really a good guy, a true gentle giant. Did a lot of commercial work, and also have a lot of good business, and very well known out there in the fitness industry. So you hate to hear that, but that's why it's important. Get that blood work, guys. Make sure you're out there paying attention to stuff. No more is not better. That's why me and Sugar Sean are still around doing
Yeah.
what we do, because you got to be smart. So that said, you were out and around, so you've been to Hawaii and back, and then hit the ground running into the fitness expo. So I know you were working on your show in Hawaii. We
Yeah.
can cover that a little bit later, but tell me about the Fit Expo. I saw some pics. I saw
Yeah.
John Brown. I saw Danny Hester. I saw some of the legends out there, Sean.
Yeah. Jake Cutler was there. Breon Ansley, fresh off his Dubai Pro Championship. You forgot it came from Dubai, California,
That's
Hawaii.
right. Yeah.
And now I'm taking off for Switzerland this week. Um, yeah, it was good to see Breon. It was good to see some of the competitors. I know Wendy Fortino, 2 months out from the Olympia, the women's figure. Doesn't get a whole lot of light, the women's figure, although we do have a 7-time consecutive winner who's
Yeah.
going for number 8. And that should not
Yeah.
be lost. Sid Gillen is the real deal. And we gotta shed some light on what's happening in that women's figure. Uh, as I talked to Wendy, it's not very well discussed. They don't get very much publicity, these girls. But yeah, Mark Mazurik, Jane Haber, and the crew at the Fit Expo, they do it twice a year, LA and in Anaheim. They used to do it also over in Chicago for a spell and down in San Diego. Great time, for these companies to come out. It was great for me as a promoter to go talk to some of those companies. And 4-time Olympia champion Jay Cutler was over there. Danny Hester, the first classic physique guy, brought out Quincy Taylor, 2001 Mr. USA, one of the
Oh,
biggest guys to ever
QT.
do it.
All right.
Yeah. He said, I said, so what was one of your best acting roles? He said, Planet of the Apes. I'm like, which ape? Which series? How would we know? He's like, the biggest and the baddest. I'm like, okay, I got to go back and watch the series. But yeah, it was good to see him. He's training people. The big bad wolf, Dennis Wolf, was in the house.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
now he's doing stuff that you and I, we watch on TV. We'd never be willing to do it. He's jumping out of airplanes. He's jumping into ice holes. He's
What?
Yeah, he's you know those they cut the hole in the ice and you jump in
Uh,
that crap, and he's doing these. He's doing it's a different type of an exercise. He's kind of an adrenaline junkie, jumping off cliffs and
Bro,
stuff.
I can't take a cold shower, let alone. I see these ice bath things, and I
Yeah.
just that you'd have to offer me stupid money to be able to do that.
Yeah, well, I brought up the story from years ago when he was pushing 310 pounds. Him and Dennis James were out in Dubai with Melvin Anthony, and he fell off the freaking jet ski. He was so far out in the water you couldn't see land, and the jet ski fell over and it started to sink. And all the other guys are out there rolling around. They don't know
Oh
what's really
boy.
going on. Yeah, they're having fun. Now you're 300 plus pounds.
Oh
You're
man.
nowhere near land, and you're freaking your sea-doo's on. He's going underwater. He almost drowned. I go, well, that would give me a reason not to really take chances. The next thing you know, he's jumping out of airplanes.
Well, listen, Dennis is pretty adventurous, and he's a good guy though. I love talking to him. I love running into him. But it looks like a good time was had by all.
Yeah.
Especially for the legends out there. So always good. I got to get out to this thing next year.
Yeah, no, it's right at Disneyland. So I mean, you can kind of do the trifecta because you're surrounded by like Morton Steakhouse and Fleming's and
Sure.
Ruth Chris, and then you got the whole fitness expo in the fitness industry. It really was, a reunion for me because I'm 20 minutes away, and
Yeah, sure.
my high school was right there. So I literally left the expo with all these cats I haven't seen for a while, and then I went back into high school and went way back into time. We were giving out awards. We're giving out gift certificates. We're like, who's got the most kids? One guy had 8 kids.
Eight.
8 kids. And
Man.
I recognize the person who's been at their job the longest. One of the guys was at their job for 38 years at Costco. And
Well,
it re-
technically, I mean, and I know that's a job, but I think technically you would actually win that.
I was giving out the award, so I didn't want to interject
Oh
myself in
yeah.
there. But
But I
yeah,
mean, technically
technically,
speaking, you have been at the sport of bodybuilding, right? Your
yeah.
whole life. You've actually never. We joke about it all the time. You've never actually had a real
Yeah.
job.
40. Well, I am the son of a janitor and I did work. It was child slavery, labor. There's some kind of law we were breaking
Yeah, I'm sure
from
you are.
elementary school up till high school. But I started in the industry at 17 years old is when I
Yeah,
started. And I think I got my first check when I was 20. So I'm right there with that guy at Costco.
yeah,
So,
you are.
but again, and he's like me. He's like, look, you find what you love doing and it doesn't feel like work.
Now, listen, and God bless you for that, bro. Hopefully, we stay healthy and we get continue to do things like critique shows, and that's what we're going to do here. We're not going to go through the whole thing. Everybody knows the Texas Pro. We were off a few weeks because of our own travels, but
Yeah.
what I wanted to discuss, Shawn, was we saw the results of the Texas Pro. We saw that Andrew Jack came in looking about as jacked as you can look. From what I heard, Shawn, Andrew Jack was just phenomenal, supersized it, very 1997 to 98 Ronnie when he made those great improvements. But he literally looked like he looks like Mr. Olympia.
Yeah, I told you I had some big guys on my panel with Dennis Wolf and Quincy Taylor, and they both unequivocally responded to the same question that who would they like to see as Mr. Olympia right now if it was held now? And they both said straight up, Andrew Jack is their pick based on what they've seen this year.
Sure.
Not to mention based on Derek and Hottie. These are smaller bodybuilders like myself. They were former 212-pound bodybuilders that have now somehow or another found a way to sandwich another 30, 40 pounds on their frames, which makes them look a little more squatty. And they don't look as long and they don't look as X
Yeah.
frame that Dennis Wolf, he won 2 Arnold Classics, one in Spain and one in Ohio. And of course, Quincy Taylor, his pinnacle was the USA's. But the big, long, lanky, X-frame, athletic look, Andrew Jack is bringing it. And I had to kind of give him some perspective. I said, look, yeah, he looked like Mr. Olympia in Texas, but you're only as good as the people you stand next to, and that's where you get a dose of reality. It was August. We still have 2 more months to go, and when you get to that Olympia and you stand them next to people, again, some people can rise to the occasion. Some get lost in the commotion, carry too much water, miss their peak, make some rookie mistakes. It's not Andrew's first time at the Olympia, and it's not the first time we saw Andrew Jack, but it was the first time we saw Andrew Jack, I believe, in a contest where there wasn't that much depth. So he looked that much better, in my opinion. The one that has
Yeah.
to worry while we start talking about the Olympia is Nick Walker, because no one talked about the guy that finished in second place, to Andrew Jack. It was a runaway victory. But
Right.
when Nick Walker eked out a very controversial win against the little-known Martin Fitzwater that could have beat him, that raised a lot of question marks, because Nick is of the opinion that he's one of the top 5 bodybuilders on the planet. And based on what we saw last week, these guys are predicting that Andrew Jack should arguably be leapfrogging over these guys and be Mr. Olympia. And if that's true, then you got Andrew, then you got Derek, then you have Hottie, then you have Samson, and now
Yep.
that fifth place spot that we're talking about, Nick would be fighting and struggling to get in there, especially if Martin Fitzwater comes in even better than he was at the New York Pro. Makes it
Well,
interesting.
I agree with you. Listen, Nick's a freak. You know, we give him all the respect in the world for being a freak. For bringing that factor and that muscularity and all that. But when you're talking about pure physiques, and we are bodybuilding purists, we make no apologies
No.
for the fact that we're bodybuilding purists. What I saw out of Andrew Jack, that's not a top 5 physique. That's a top 3 physique. That's a guy who instantaneously, I think, if he shows up, and listen, he wasn't far off there. I mean, he was enough to win the show. Didn't have a lot of competition next to him, with all due respect. If he's just a few percent sharper at the Olympia, bro, like I said, he presents a different package and a different look to these judges. But small waist, huge X frame, big thighs, big shoulder. I mean, he has all the attributes, like I say, at about 6'2". That this is really going to be interesting for the judges in comparison. I tell you, who's going to have an interesting run with him is going to be Samson.
Yeah, Samson is the X factor, because again, he went through some struggles after the Arnold Classic over in England, looking for a trainer, his wife stepping in, going over to Oxygen Gym, and there's a lot of things going on in that head of his, along with the newfound success and expectation. Heavy is the head that wears the crown, and Derek Lunsford is the one who's kind of been MIA in all of this. We were talking about someone that could take that title, become more visible, and market it, and do all these things that we were hoping would happen that just haven't really happened, right? I think Derek became a new father.
Sure.
I think maybe he pulled back on some of his travels. I know he had a tour that was canceled over in England. And so the fans are waiting for someone to elevate. And if Andrew Jack steps in there at all of 6'1" and leapfrogs over the little guys, it's another era, right? We're going right back into the land of the giants, and these little guys will be the odd men out. But that's what makes this 60th year so incredibly impressive to me. On the run up, with 2 months to go, we're starting to see these pieces fall into place. We're looking at these matchups within matchups. Andrew he doesn't have a lot to prove, because I don't think it'll take a lot to be better than what he was a year ago.
Right.
It's Nick Walker trying to make his comeback, coming back from the hamstring injury. And it's also Derek trying to prove to us that it wasn't a fluke. It's also Hadi Choopan, who knows what it's
Right.
like to win and lose that title, and sometimes that'll make you even more hungry. He can't add another 5 pounds to his. If Hadi Choopan comes in heavier, I'm counting him out, because there's
Well,
nothing left to put there.
so here's the question, Sean, because and Samson, we can add to that mix in fulfilling his destiny. Is most people in bodybuilding would agree that he has the best physique. He's just got to get the conditioning to match. So my question to
Yes.
you is that kind of physique with better conditioning, is that Andrew Jacked?
No. I got Samson as the most complete bodybuilder on the stage. It is a
So you still
conditioning.
think at this point, even from what we saw from Jacked, that Samson still, if they were both 100% hypothetically, that Samson's still better?
I mean, Samson has the more complete physique. And listen, Andrew
Right.
Jack, for as beautiful as he is with the expert, like Tony Freeman, he won a smaller show, but he disappeared in that Olympia lineup.
Sure.
That's where you can really see the difference in some of these guys' genetics. Look at Andrew Jack standing next to those guys. It was like a man amongst boys. The Olympia lineup is significantly different, and genetics do come in, and the freak factor comes in. For all of Andrew's pluses, I mean, the hamstrings aren't all there. The triceps need a little bit more meat on the bone.
Mm-hmm.
Um, his conditioning still would have to be a little bit drier than what he brought to Texas. And sometimes, Bob, the lighting at these other shows, sorry to say, they're better than the Olympia lighting. And
Yeah.
while the Olympia, with all of the pageantry and everything, we are still trying to get back to that lighting that like John Balick and Mike Neville used to bring to the Pro Ironman, or like the Arnold Classic used to have when it
Sure.
was just the black curtain. Um, I don't have to knock the Olympia for not having the best lighting because it's an even playing field. The darker the skin, the flatter you're
Right.
gonna look. And Andrew Jack and Samson are both victims of those neon lights behind them on the stage that kind of flatten them out. The lighting in Texas, they did a great job. I think the Olympia lighting still is a work in progress.
Well, we're at the resorts this year back in Vegas, as most people know by now. That is going to be more favorable lighting. Everybody knows that theater lighting traditionally is better than expo lighting or artificial lighting that they have to bring in. So I
Arena.
know the boys are going to be working hard on that. As big as the story was of who was there, Shawn, some of the story was who wasn't there, or at least on stage. Hunter Labrada was a guest of the show, as he lives about 20 minutes from there, but he wasn't competing. He's waiting till Italy. Now, unless I'm mistaken, there are only two qualifiers left, which is the Italy Pro September 8th, which is literally just in a few weeks, and the UK Pro September 14th. The Legion Pro is September 27th to 28th, so I don't think that as a qualifier for this year, right?
No, it's after.
Yeah. So Chris Minnis, again, and we'll be at that show, as we have been for years, does a great job with that show, great competition. Good for somebody to get the early qualification. But that only leaves two shows left, and Hunter's picking one of those shows to go to. Now, I don't think he's going to have any issue qualifying per se. The issue is he's catching a little bit of flack, at least from what I've seen, that he specifically did not go into Texas because of Andrew Jack. Any truth to that, in your opinion?
You never can tell what a bodybuilder's thinking. It's a very big inconvenience to leave the country at any given time.
Yeah.
But to put all your eggs in that one basket, it only takes one spoiler to knock you off your pedestal. He doesn't qualify in Italy. It's pizza and beer. He's watching the
Yeah.
show with you and I. He's
Right.
just another bodybuilder in the crowd. So that might be enough pressure for him to actually hit his peak. And look, you shoot your wad over in Italy, you come back here, and there's nothing left in the tank. It's a double-edged sword. I would have played it safe, stayed close to home, had my entire family and crew there to witness the victory, so I can qualify, add that title to my resume. Going over to Italy, it's blind faith, but it's got to be a lot of confidence that he thinks he can win it. Otherwise, why go? Economically, we know he can afford a trip over to Italy, but it seems like a big waste of money. I think it was a blown opportunity for him to get a victory right here. I would have definitely faced Andrew Jack if I was Hunter. Hunter's been in the top 4 of the Olympia.
Well, I'll tell you one of the problems he's got, Shawn, is listen, this is not a foregone conclusion. While on paper he may be the highest ranking guy there, he's got a couple of unknowns because you have a Nathan Diaz out there who's absolutely been a killer when it comes to winning shows overseas. He's better than a lot of people think he is. He picks the right shows. He comes in shape all the time, always a threat. You also got William Bonac, who just did very, very well that we saw. Didn't give up a whole lot from the William Bonac that we know, but he's in his last year. He's doing the big Swan Song tour. He'll be on the Olympia stage, but he could easily go into this show. So, and you've got, I'm not sure if he's going in, but, Brett Wilkins is still out there, very formidable, very good up and comer. Right now, with Andrew Jack qualifying, and we didn't think he wouldn't, that now brings the count to 17. There's 17 gentlemen qualified for the Mr. Olympia right now. There's also a couple of big question marks. We don't know if Big Rami's going in. I don't think he's going in my opinion. I think it would be a mistake. I think he should literally just, go out there and be two-time Mr. Olympia and call it a day. But I see no indications or hear anything from the Big Rami camp. Have you?
No, and the further away you get from the stage, the more we want as fans to see him come back. I think that ship sailed. He's got other opportunities and other things going on, but he would have definitely dropping a hint. With 2 months to go, we would know. The internet leaks everything. You can't keep a secret. What I would have done, however, if I'm Big Samson, he's right there in England. I'd go over and spoil Hunter Labrada's dream. If I would just show up and do the show. Because if I believe I'm a top 3 guy like Samson does believe he is, then Hunter's not a threat to me. I'm going to go there and I'm going to get that check. And now I have momentum going into
Yeah.
the show. I have a little bit of extra money for my efforts, but it's an hour from Italy to England. Yeah. If I'm Samson, I show up and I let him know, you ain't getting this title, and thanks for trying. And then Hunter's going to have to reevaluate what the game plan is there. But it's not. I think it's a gamble. It's risk. But now this could be a one and done for Hunter. It definitely is a make or break, high stakes. You know what it's like traveling overseas, man. There's so many things that can go wrong.
Listen, you and I do it all the time, and we're not getting ready for anything except the buffet and the next
Yeah.
pizza with Rudy Panada. But yeah, when you're getting ready for competition, and again, listen, everybody's heard the stories. For the uninformed or the ill-informed, they always think it's some kind of a crutch that the guys use. Oh, let me guess, you got food poisoning. Oh, let me guess, this happened. Listen, these are very real things, people. These aren't just excuses people pull out of their hat, okay, when it's convenient. It's very difficult to eat clean, stay on your program, eat what you're supposed to be eating. You've got a foreign country, foreign foods. Listen, they've got different standards and stuff at different countries and things like that. So they're not excuses all the time. And to boot, at that point in time, your immune system is about as compromised as it's going to get. You are not. You may look the best you've ever looked, but you don't feel the best you've ever felt. And your immune system, John, you've been there as well as I, is definitely compromised the closer you get to a show. Yes or no?
And yeah, and Hunter's had some water retention issues. So you add that transatlantic flight into that, you're going into a place that you're really not familiar with. I would be there right now if I was him. So to alleviate any surprises, I'm over there
Yeah.
at least a couple of weeks in advance, and I'm doing the business. I can't get in his head. His dad was a master at that. His
Yeah.
dad could travel, but his dad was 175 freaking pounds. I mean, Hunter's got him by a good
He's
70 pounds.
275 pounds.
Yeah, so that's a lot of weight to be lugging around, a lot of chicken you got to be carrying around. You're carrying around a gallon of water wherever you go, and relying on various sources for your food prep. So I want to see how this plays out. He could show up, bro, and there's nobody there, and we've seen that. There are a
Yeah.
lot of people. Reagan Grimes went all the way to Romania, and he beat. I don't know who knows who was
Well,
second.
speaking of Regan Grimes, great segue, Sean. On my MIA list, I've looked at last year's Olympia list, and you got some names here that just aren't there this year. Regan Grimes being one of them. Good young talent. We've all seen he's got some good size and all that. I know manager Matt, pretty much guides him along the way, but I can't help but thinking it's like, man, you've got some good years, bro, that we're not seeing you on stage. Michael Crezo was in last year. Definitely had some things to work on, but, big boy, a lot of muscle. He's out with a shoulder surgery. Rubio is a big question mark. Now, we saw Rubio at his last competition over in Dubai. He's a big freak. He's Victor Richards 2.0. We gave him all kinds of accolades last time we talked. Now I'm hearing that he was going in Italy, but now I hear that he's not going in Italy.
Yeah, I mean, look, when you're that young in your career, and it's hard to get the formula down. It's hard to stay on the grind, and if it's not on your calendar at the top of the year, and you're trying to add it on the back end of a defeat that he actually thought he was going to do a lot better than, I wouldn't be surprised if he's sitting in the audience next to me watching the competition, waiting for next year. I just don't understand when you're a guy that big that you take these big time off
Yeah.
to try to make these improve. You don't have time. Time is your enemy. Stay closer to your contest weight and keep trying to dial it in. But look, this stage is too big for Rubio. He's not ready for prime time. I think he knows that. He'd be better off working the audience at the Expo so he can meet his fans that follow him around. He brings that freak factor. Remember Victor Richards signing autographs? He'd be signing autographs for $20 while the top pros are selling them for 10. So Rubio's
Well,
better off just kind of, I think, marketing himself. Nathan Diasha, I don't think he's in the position to beat a Hunter Labrada when Hunter's at his absolute best physically. There's some things that'll go wrong,
not if he was at
but
his best,
what
right?
he does is he catches these guys when they're
Yeah.
off, and he's got enough to beat a good guy that should normally beat him if that good guy is not 100% prepared. So he could pose a threat, but again, that show over there in Europe.
Yeah.
And I'm Samson. I'm gonna go get that check. I'd love to see him come out and just rain on everybody's parade.
Well, listen, like I said, we don't know what Bonak's doing either. He's over on that side, and he's not shy about going in
He should
shows. He always stays
absolutely
in
do the
shape,
show.
and
Yeah,
he's been as high as second in the Olympia.
he should absolutely do the show coming off a second in Dubai. Nothing to lose. You're dieting anyways. He could treat it as a guest posing. He's still on the way to the Olympia, so I'm sure hopefully he's making closer progress from Dubai to this. But who knows? Sometimes when you lose, you want to shut it down, try to fix those mistakes for the big show. But yeah, William Bonac is a smaller guy. I'd go. He's in Europe.
Well, I'll say this, Shawn. I think your advices are the right ones for Rubio. And if I'm a betting man, bro, I think he will wait till next year.
Yeah.
See what I did there?
Yeah.
Next
I hear you.
year, bro. Huh? Come on now.
Good stuff.
All right.
Good stuff.
Anyway, Justin Shire, nowhere to be found this year. The kid, again, good young talent. I like what he brings it. His physique, he's got to supersize it up, need some more time in the gym. Maybe that's what he's doing, but that's a name absent from this year's list. Phil Clayhart, a Jamaican tank, has announced his retirement. Great bodybuilder. I think he did a lot with what he had. Good Masters champ, but he's called it a day. And Ross Flanagan, one of the better guests that we've had on Olympia TV. Very cool guy. Again, I love his willingness to put himself out there and even poke fun at, he was making fun of himself because he never won a show getting to the pros. But
however, he did win my show in Baltimore.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I
that's right.
was there when he won. I think he won the California Pro Show, didn't he?
Yeah, listen, I mean, the kid's a good kid. I mean, but I like a guy who can call it the way it is. He didn't paint it to be anything more than or less than what it was. But if what I understand, he has a very successful business. And Roman Fritz, again, another name that snuck in there last year, absent this year. My boy Sergio, no idea. I assume he's still training and trying to perfect that physique. Maybe we'll see him in the Legion again. We did see him there a couple of years ago against Clarita and Regan Grimes, oddly enough.
And
good competition.
Not for nothing, Bob, but I know Sean Clarita wants to regain that 212 title, man. But if I was him, I'd definitely have an open show or two on my mind because he did very well. He won the region. He won
He won.
He won that show. Why not go back? It's
Truly the
after
giant
Olympia.
killer.
Why not?
Hey, listen, it's a big paycheck, and why not? Like you said, and who knows where he goes down the line. He's very much set on trying to get that title back. I got to say this: I saw some video of Keon Pearson the other day, and I tell you what, man, this kid, you can see he's got laser focus going on as being the champ. We always speculate, how are these guys as a contender versus the champion? Which is easier? Is it more pressure? He seems to have responded very favorably to being the champ and wanting to keep the title. He looks like he's in better condition right now than what I saw on stage last year. That's scary for any other competitor in the 212.
Yeah, I mean, his only vice is going to be conditioning because we know Sean Clarita brings the conditioning. That's going to be a portion of the Olympia weekend that's going to actually rise to the occasion. I don't think it will disappoint. I don't think anybody in third or fourth place is going to be even in that equation. This is going to be a repeat of last year, and it's going to come down to who shows up in shape.
Sure is. Well, I was doing some hypotheticals of my own as we now have 17, as I mentioned, into the Olympia. And this is kind of how it breaks down to me. You got three distinct groups, in my opinion. But there's a couple of question marks in there. Group one, I can see this as a first call out. Give me your yay or nay. Derek, Hottie, Sampson, Nick, Brandon, Jacked, and the only guy I got to put in parentheses is Tabani, because we don't know if he can actually get to the Olympia. But I'm going to go on the idea that he can get to the Olympia. He would be in that. Is that a hypothetical first call out with 7 people?
No, too many people. I wouldn't want to look at 7. And I don't think we're at the 60th year, right? I don't even think the judges should put themselves in a box where their first call out is any less than 5 guys, which doesn't indicate it's the top 5.
No.
I think you bring the fewer is better, so we can get a really good look.
Yep.
I think you bring out 5 guys, bring them out 5 at a time. It's hard when you bring out 7 or 8, or even 6. Bring them out 5 at a time. Get a good look, and confuse the audience.
I just gave you 7 names of a hypothetical. Again, we're going to go with the idea that Tabani gets in there. Let's just give him that.
What I would do.
Who are the 2 guys that are out?
Well, what I would do, I'd start with the top 3 guys that we know are going to be
Derek, Hottie, and Sampson.
Yeah, I would start with that comparison, and then I go down the list and bring out 3 more.
Okay.
I bring out the next 3 guys that I think
Nick, Brandon, Jack, and Tabani.
If Tabani can make it, it's another question mark.
we're gonna go on AD. He can. I certainly hope he can. Love the guy's talent. Love what he brings. I think he's very comparable. It's a shame if he can't get that visa. I did talk to a few people, as you did, Shawn, when we were over there, trying to get to the bottom of the whys and those type of things. It's very much a whole governmental thing. It's putting this request in, and he's put in the request. He has checked into it, and they basically told him, "Yeah, we have it. Basically, don't check back again."
Yeah.
Okay,
So
we got your application. We're looking at it, right? We'll don't call us. We'll call you, and that's kind of where he is right now over there, and he's stuck between because he doesn't want to piss anybody off. By the same token, it's like, well, am I going or not? Am I getting approved or am I not?
Well, what you do is he needs to focus on the show after the Olympia. So train as if you're going to get out, and if you don't, you go to Europe because I think he can go there.
Yeah, yeah,
And you know what? It changes the trajectory of maybe your life career dream of going to the Olympia. But 3 strikes and you're out. Like if they don't let me in this year, I'm
yeah.
gonna go ahead. I'll be prepared. If the call comes in, I'm gonna make the trip. If it doesn't, I'm gonna go to Europe and do that show, and I'm gonna just lower my expectation. And you know
Yeah.
what? I'm gonna use that Middle East area or where I can travel as my workplace and try to market myself there. Screw
I'll
America.
tell you what,
That's
the
it.
Dubai Pro would become my Olympia because Badr Bodai is already pledged, as we announced in the last episode. He's going up to $500,000 in prize money for that competition next year. So and he
Well,
definitely will be there.
he's got to be careful what he wishes for because the other guys are going to want to come get that too, and he'll have his little mini Olympia over there.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So here's Group 2 again in my hypothetical sequence here: Muhammad Fuda, Bonac, Fitzwater, Rafael Brandau, and again I got to put Nathan in parentheses. No expectation he can make it. Let's just assume he can. I would have him in that group too.
So you don't have Hunter Labrada in there at all.
Well,
Top 10.
he's not. He's not. I'm just going by who's qualified right now.
Okay.
If
Now
Hunter's qualified, I would have him in group 2 also.
we have 2 more qualifiers, right?
There's, as far as my notes say, the Italy Pro September 8th and the UK Pro September 14th. I think that's it.
September the 14th is after the Mr. Olympia, so that's a non-starter. That's for the
September
25.
14th,
October.
bro.
Oh, okay. It's 1 week after.
Yeah, they're coming up September 8th, which is in what, 2 weeks, and September 14th is the week after that. They're both
Okay.
qualifiers for the Olympia.
Well, geez, if I go do the September 8th show, I'm going to September 14th. Like,
I would
why
think,
not?
but then again, we've been wrong before. But that's my hypothetical second group out of that. Muhammad Fuda shows the best promise, but we did see a little bit of letdown that he opted to go to Tampa, and then he actually ended up losing to De La Rosa.
It's interesting because again, no one wants to rain on anybody's parade or tell them what they're not capable of or whatnot. But we were talking over the weekend about what John De La Rosa should do now that he's won again and got a free ticket to Olympia. And unanimously, the guys I was talking about were like, "Hey, this guy should just wait till the shows after the Olympia." Good reason. One, I think he won like 20 grand. I'm not sure at the Tampa Pro, but whatever it was, you got 2 months to spend it to get ready for a show where getting in that top 6 is probably unrealistic.
Well, you said in
So
our last episode that basically you would have him not retire, so to say, but just basically bank the win and kind of move on and stuff with no expectations. But I don't want to get caught up on De La Rosa because again he's a good guy. I would have him actually in the third call out, which is Theo Legulé, Tonio Burton, Big Akeem, John Jewett, and De La Rosa.
so it's so tough. I mean, you made it to the Olympia one year, didn't you?
I did 202. Yeah.
I mean, it is an honor and a privilege, right? And especially my first time. I was 13th in my first Olympia.
Yeah. Right.
Um, but just going to the Olympia, the pageantry of it all, it's one thing getting there, and it's another thing when you don't get what you you know, the dream gets crushed, and you
Yeah.
don't get that call out. You don't get to see your fans. You don't get to see your friends. You have to
Well,
go.
hang on
You have
though.
to go
In
through all of that.
all fairness, you were in a whole different hemisphere, not of a competition. We're not going to go down that road. Well, you're 22 years old, bro. You're literally just starting your career. So
Yeah.
it's hard to explain that versus a guy, let's say like a De La Rosa, who's got to be pushing 40, if he isn't. That, it's a dream to compete. You were in a different world you were literally up and coming.
That's true. I just didn't think it was fun, right? Like I didn't get to enjoy
Well,
it
you
because
didn't
I
like
didn't.
losing.
Well,
So,
yeah, yeah, but it's not. I mean, it's one thing to feel like you're a part of a team or you're a part of an
right.
elite, but as I aged up, you start thinking about the opportunities you miss because you're not available at the expo. You're not able to,
Yeah.
make those contacts and push business and think further down the road. And not to mention, you're not even able to meet the fans legitimately because that meet the pros thing is kind of, it's interfering with your running back and forth to the bathroom and your hydration process, your carbing up process, depletion process. Then you get out there and you realize these judges aren't even looking at me. I'm not getting the call outs I want. And you don't see me standing here like that guy's better than me. You start getting these things in your head. And then when you all leave the stage, you realize you got to come back for the finals and you got to stay on a diet.
Yeah.
And then you want to go, screw it. Now you eat it, whatever the hell you want. And now you come out and you present yourself on stage. You're totally smooth. You don't even put the color on, and
Yeah.
you can't wait for it to be over. I don't want to discourage anybody, but that's the lens I see things at my age. Like if you know that you're not going to be a challenger or a real competitor, it's got to
Right.
be something special to go anyways, right? Because
Sure.
I'd rather be part of the fight than part of the audience, wearing my posing trunks. I'd rather have my clothes on, having pizza and beer, enjoying the show,
Well,
than to be on the stage and being ignored.
yeah, as any true competitor, listen, nobody likes to lose. None of us get ready to lose. You don't spend the money and the time and the effort to lose. Okay. And you came off, just in your particular instance, you came from being the teenage national champ to the national champion to then first Olympia, and you're scrapping to try to get in the top 10. So, I mean, it's quite a blow to the ego, the effort
Yeah,
where you think you are at that point. Of course, you got visions of being up there next to these guys and all that. And if nothing else, it builds character and it makes you work a whole lot harder. I
yeah,
know from we both competed in the '86 junior nationals. Now
exactly.
people would remember you from that competition, but they wouldn't remember me as I didn't actually make the cut in
Yeah,
'86. But because I didn't make the cut, it made me go back to the grindstone, work my ass off, and I came back and won the whole thing in '87.
that's right.
So there is something to be said for humbling a little bit, in that particular instance. But the Olympia is truly a grand experience. And again, you were in an era, as I was, luckily, even at the end of that, that Joe Weider was still in position. He's still coming out on stage. He's still presenting the medals. Ben Weider is still alive. There was a lot of pomp and circumstance that went into the Olympia. And yes, we are in a different era now. But to these guys, it's still making it to the big dance.
Well, let me ask you, because I'm of the opinion that, look, by the time we get to the finals, I
Mhm.
want to see the main event. So if prejudging is truly designed for the process of elimination,
Right.
are you not in agreement with me that we want to just see the top 10 or just maybe
Oh
the
yeah.
top 15? Do we need to see 30 guys on that stage just because they qualify, or should they get their pizza and beer following the prejudging, because it's just going to prolong the night show,
Sure.
and they're going to take up time and space, and they would have an opportunity to actually enjoy the show.
I,
So
listen, we've talked obviously forever. My philosophy, which is I'd bring everybody and their mother to the big dance, but I would have qualification rounds. All right. Elimination rounds, call them whatever you will. I have no problem spreading the wealth. I have no problem with people getting to the Olympia, getting a taste of that big stage and, what it means to actually get to the top. But the Olympics just passed, Sean. You and I
yeah,
were watching various parts of the Olympics, whether it was running, whether it was in the water, whatever. All you saw was 8 lanes of people.
that's it.
Okay,
And
the
you know how many
fastest
people
guys in the
try.
world. Okay,
Yeah.
8. Now there was a whole bunch that qualified, but then they have heats. Okay, you got to get past the first one. You got to get to the semifinals. Tennis, same exact thing. Golf, I just watched this past weekend. Okay, not everybody makes it to the finals, and I'm exactly in agreement with you. If it was me personally, I would change the entire thing around. Where yes, you get there, but you got to go through a qualification round to actually get to the Joe Weider
Friday
final
night,
stage.
Saturday
And I
night. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's like you're right. I mean, listen, we've got 80 something shows in a couple of particular divisions this year. I think most notably men's physique and bikini, 80 something. That means if assuming Kaltwasser doesn't win half of them, okay, in bikini, which is certainly possible, that you could have 80 girls qualified for the Olympia. Now, again, I'm good with that, right? But you can't have 80 girls on there at the same.
Finals.
Just think about this visually, Sean. And we've been there at every one of these Olympias, right? You've got 40 girls on each side of the stage. 4 rows of 10 girls. You can't even see everybody. It's not fair to the competitors. It doesn't get the job done. It's not the best of the best, right? In my opinion, at the start of what I would call prejudging, that means there would be a couple of heats before that you don't actually get there, that you would eliminate most of them.
Yeah.
Maybe there's 15 that go to the prejudging, and then you break it down to the top 10 or whatever for the finals.
Yeah, and you know what? I think it does the athlete a service. It is an honor and a privilege to be there. And if you can get on that stage, get your picture taken, you got the Olympia logo behind you, and you qualified. But when it comes to the finals, and you've flown in from, I don't know, freaking Japan, Romania, Germany. I mean, there's people coming from all over the world, and you make them after prejudging, and they know that they're not in the top 20.
Right.
And they have to come back to get into hair and makeup. They have to come back and get tan. They've got to stay nervously, cautiously in shape because they're going to be on stage in front of a pay-per-view audience in a packed
Right.
house. They don't want to take a bad picture because they're obsessive compulsive like we are, even though they're not at their best. They're getting beat by the world's best. They're not getting beat by slouches. But you got to maintain this for hours, and it's excruciating. Even 24 hours, because prejudging is Friday, finals on Saturday. Something's got to give because we can't go to that midnight hour every year. It's just not even fun after a while.
In fairness, we don't present them all anymore. We used to do that, and I never liked it. I don't like bringing people out that basically, hey, here's all the losers. Hey, here's everybody who didn't make the cut. I mean, I never found that to be anything but insulting and embarrassing. But we don't do that anymore. But they still get through the prejudging, which takes hours, of course. The presentations alone. Even if you cut them, again, they're supposed to get a minute or two, right? Obviously, you can't do that because that would be 80 minutes.
Yeah.
Without, I'm not even talking on off, okay? We're talking, I have to announce them. They come out, it takes the girls forever to walk. It's a big stage, right? Now, all that stuff eats time. But you're looking at almost an hour and a half of just presentations, which are ultimately useless because the judges are sitting there tapping their pencil and waiting for the comparisons because it's all about comparisons.
Right.
So
I think sometimes the way those comparisons happen should happen in groups. Bring them out 10 at a time. Both turns.
Totally, 100%.
I was with Chris Cormier one year in Egypt, and they was free to enter. They had 700 amateur athletes. They were looking for the Egyptian team, free to get on stage. And they brought them out 10 at a time. When they brought them out 10 at a time, the judging criteria for us 6 judges, pick our top 3 from this group of 10.
Yeah.
Next 10, pick 3. Next 10, pick 3.
I'm in for that.
It's not rocket science.
No. The individuals are useless. I mean, listen, they were around years ago to fill time way back before we had the 100 divisions, okay? They were good for pictures, which were good for the magazines. Okay, well, we don't have magazines anymore. For the pictures, look, you can get your own pictures and all that. I think we really need to look at revamping. And we're talking big shows here. We're not talking small shows. We're not talking when you've got, 100 athletes. You're talking about 400 and something athletes. So that said, we'll see what the powers that be. Listen, much like the NFL, we should be looking at stuff every year and making changes where they're appropriate. I know Tyler Mannion has been very instrumental in, looking at stuff for the next, foreseeable future and making change. So good for him. And of course, Jim is as involved as ever, as he should be. But speaking of Jim, continuing on in our final segment show with our Olympia history, we left off last time at the Zane era, 77, 78, and 79. Frank Zane would usher in a whole new different type of physique after the big mass monsters of Arnold and Lou and those guys would come and go. He would bring in a different level of conditioning. I was never a big Zane fan. In 77, now remember, you had lightweight and heavyweight back then. Okay, so you had 2 different classes as they would go from height groups to weight groups later on. Then it was just one big happy family. But he beats Robbie in 77, which I got to be honest. I mean, I'm not a personal Robbie fan for various reasons, but physique wise, this guy was on the mark. And I never saw him beating Robbie, to be honest.
Yeah, you're right. Robbie was a better overall bodybuilder. The difference is bodybuilding is a sport of illusion. Arnold Schwarzenegger in 1980 didn't look like Arnold Schwarzenegger in 1976. However, he gave the illusion in certain poses that he was still Arnold. Frank
Yep.
Zane got a level of dryness that showed us things on his body that we would never see on Robbie Robinson's body. The dark ebony skin made him look a little bit smooth and soft and silky at times,
Sure.
rounder and fuller. But Frank Zane's thin skin made things pop on his body. You turn him around to the rear. I mean, Robbie kills him on the rear double back bicep.
Yeah.
Have we really seen Frank Zane in a good back double bicep? I've never, but he's always
No.
done his back double bicep. He moves around a little bit,
Yeah.
positions himself slightly different, so it's not straight on. It's tilted. He's moving his hips. Whereas Robbie, he gave it to you straight. Um, I think there's a lot of poses that Frank, when he positioned his physique a certain way, it drew the eye away from Robbie's mass.
Sure.
Robbie wasn't huge. I think maybe 220, 215, somewhere in there. Frank
No, he
Zane was,
presented a lot bigger than he was.
yeah, Frank Zane was thin. I mean, Frank was 170, 75, 180
Well, that's
pounds.
why I had a problem with him being Mr. Olympia for 3
Yeah.
years though in a row. Listen, he did have great detail. He did have good muscularity, great vacuum in certain poses. But I can't get by the thin legs.
Yeah.
His hamstrings were non-existent. He's got no ass. He's just thin. He's up and down. He literally has no V taper.
But here, we could say the same thing about Labrada at 175 pounds. We could say the same thing about Samir at 189 pounds.
But
These
both
guys
those
were
guys
tiny.
had better V taper.
Listen, Chris Dickerson on a good day was 180, very small, very thin, but they projected. And at the time
Correct.
that Frank Zane arrives, Robbie was his only nemesis. Nobody else was challenging him for that title, and Robbie just didn't bring the wow factor when it came down to certain poses. And I think that Frank won based on more people thinking that was more attainable. I mean, look, Frank showed up, man. He looked like a school teacher, not a bodybuilder. Robbie
So
was thicker and fuller.
So you mentioned 1976, and obviously we all know that Arnold would retire after 75, go on to the movies and all that. And then 76, of course, would be Franco, and then the Zane era, and the rest, moves on.
Right.
So my question is yes, Arnold goes on to make movies and Conan and all that kind of cool stuff. But Lou Ferrigno at that time had also moved on and got the Hulk role, which put him on the map and all that. I'm sure he would never change it for the world. But from a pure bodybuilding perspective, talk about changing the landscape. Had Lou not gotten that role and continued bodybuilding, now keep in mind, Lou is what, 23, I think, during Pumping Iron or something like that. He's a young kid. And he's big, obviously, at that. He's bigger than Arnold. He's got more muscle. He's literally a guy that's just growing into his own physique. My question is, if Lou keeps going, could Lou have won the next 8 Olympias, 76 through 82? Because I don't see a challenge from him until you get to Benute.
Yeah, I think Lou Ferrigno would say yes, but you can't build a career based on what could have been.
But I know that. It's just kind of fun to think of, though. But
I
could
think
Lou
if
have been
Lou,
an 8-time Olympia champ?
if Lou stays in bodybuilding, I don't think we have the celebrity Lou, because he would have just been another meathead that's very one-dimensional, and there's not a lot of people that would probably aspire to that, because he was 6'5", right? I mean, he was
Yeah.
over 300 pounds, and
Yeah.
he's a freaking alien. But even with that, those little guys would be able to take him out because they would have been more complete. Samir Banu next to Lou Ferrigno, he would have made Lou Ferrigno look like an amateur. I'm sorry,
Well,
it's
it's
just
just
too much.
what's interesting. I mean, obviously, listen, history is history. It is what it is. But it is fun to think of what this guy could have been with another year or two of training, another year or two of refining. Much like Arnold, when Arnold first came in and then refined himself into the champion we knew. If Lou gets refined, I don't think there's any question if Lou comes in 76, he beats Franco.
Yeah.
Franco was good, but
Yeah, but it's not enough to make a career. Franco was a doctor, right? Franco had a lot of stuff going on. If you take the Hulk out of Lou Ferrigno, he's just a big bodybuilder. He's being a doorman at some club. I mean,
right.
Hollywood saved Lou Ferrigno's career and his life. Otherwise, he's just
Well,
He's a he's a weightlifter.
Listen, it gave him the life he had. I mean, listen, I mean, nobody else could have been the Hulk. That role was literally made for him, and
Yeah.
he made a career out. It still continues to this day.
Yeah.
To act in movies and things and stuff. So good for him. But yeah, it's always a good, interesting down memory lane when you think of like what the could have beens and the what ifs and all that stuff. But
Well, with Frank Zane,
continue on
had he
our
not
Olympia.
become Frank Zane doesn't become Mr. Olympia. I mean, he's a school teacher, right? I mean, he's a professor. They called him the chemist. The guy he's a brainiac.
I got to be honest, I think they call him a chemist for some other reasons, but we'll leave that to the imagination of the listener out there. I don't think it had anything to do with his school teaching. Let's just put it that way. But whatever it was, Shawn, he seemed to get a beat on it, and it put him that Sandow on his mantle 3 years in a row. So
Yeah.
good for Frank. Hopefully we'll see Frank. I haven't heard anything, any insights into the Olympia. Hopefully we'll see him. For the 60th, as I hope we see all the former Olympia champs and pretty much anybody that was anybody over this past 60 years. It'd be a great reunion in its own right, Shawn.
Absolutely. Listen, I love bringing these guys back together because, like Quincy Taylor said, bringing him out here to the Fit Expo, he hadn't been around bodybuilding in many years. Sometimes they forget the impact they have on fans because
Yeah,
they don't necessarily make themselves available to deal with them in retirement. They kind of move on and sequester themselves, and there's other things going on in life. And Frank's no spring chicken. I put him at about 77, 76.
yeah,
How old is
he's close to 80. If not, he's over 80. I think.
Yeah,
I think he's older than Arnold, right?
and yeah, and some of these guys they don't appreciate the imprint that they have. And I tell them, I go, look, people still know who you are
Yep.
just because there's no magazine. Oh, they don't know Boyarko. And they don't want to hear from me. I'm like, they don't need to hear from you. They like to see a living legend. Like,
Sure.
dude, you went up against some of the greats, man. You inspired careers
Right.
for people that necessarily didn't become pro bodybuilders, but they were looking at you and they became who they became because you inspired them. I get it. That's why I never left the sport because I my tank runs over
Yeah.
from the things I hear about what I've done for others, and I want to keep giving it back. Where some guys, their career didn't go the way they wanted, and they like, screw it, I don't want to be around the industry, and I love bringing them back in.
Yeah, well, Boyer inspired me to want to get some Nebula equipment in the leg shoe, bro.
Yeah,
Get those
say it.
calves, get those calves built up with the leg shoe. You guys can look that up in the old archives. All right, well, that's going to wrap it up for this week. Shawn, I'm going to give you a little bit of a preview, a little bit of homework for our next edition next week. I had come up with the 5 stages of grief. Now, you've heard of them, correct? Like just in life, the 5 stages of grief: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. I had come up with the 5 stages of grief in bodybuilding, and we're going to see how that applies to some of the posts I've seen from the competitors over the years. But you'd be strangely interesting as to why and how it actually appeals to the bodybuilding segment.
Sure.
So
I can't wait.
we'll see that. But like I say, that's going to wrap it up. Where are you this week, bro? Anywhere in
I'm heading
particular?
off to Switzerland for the Swiss Grand Prix, NPC Worldwide.
Okay, look at you, NPC Worldwide in Switzerland. Go get a watch fix while you're there, bro.
All right, man. We're on the countdown to September the 9th. My birthday month is coming. I'll be back out there at the Benos Classic in Dubai, September 7th and 8th.
Very good, sir. All right, well, we'll try to catch you in between there for a segment. That's going to wrap it up for this edition. For Sugar Shawn Ray, I'm Bob Chick. We're out.
All right.